is good. So hello and welcome to this month's Glow Heartfulness webinar. I'm Purnima, your host, and I'm a heartfulness trainer and a practitioner of heartfulness meditation. Glow stands for Genuine, Loving, Outstanding Women. Today on this webinar, I welcome Marilyn Cornelius, who is a coach, speaker, facilitator, author, and teacher, providing an integrated science-based approach to holistic wellness, executive leadership, change management, and creativity. Wow, that's a lot. She specializes in cultivating self-love, integrity, and confidence. She's the founder of Alchemus Prime. She holds a doctorate in behavioral sciences from the Stanford University. She's the author of several peer-reviewed articles and 15 popular books on topics such as love, trauma, and nature. Thank you so much for joining us today, Marilyn.
Hi, Purnima. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on the Glow webinar.
Thank you so much. So before we actually start this webinar, let me share a few things about the Heartfulness Institute, who is the host of the Glow webinars. Heartfulness meditation is available in more than 130 countries with thousands of volunteers and certified trainers in different parts of the world. Heartfulness Institute teaches heartfulness meditation and other holistic tools to people all over the world through workshops organized in corporate, schools, universities, and local communities. And we learn to meditate on the source of light in the heart which is the seat of love and joy. A special and unique feature of heartfulness meditation is meditating in the presence of yogic transmission or pranahuti, which is imparted by the trainer or the guide. So today on this webinar, we are going to speak about a very important topic, self-love. So self-love is something which can help us in our relationship, in our career, and most importantly, in also serving humanity. So Marilyn, tell me, why have we chose this topic? I mean, why is this your area of interest, and why are we especially talking about this topic today?
Sure, Purnima. So this is my area of interest because I think self-love is the most important foundation in anyone's life. And that's because if we love ourselves, we'll respect ourselves and we improve our self-worth and we make better decisions. And the reason we're talking about it today is because we actually cannot learn about it in school or at home. And when I really needed to learn about it, I didn't have anywhere to go. So I went inside my own heart and I wrote a book about it because I realized we really need to learn how to practice self-love, and that improves everything in our lives.
Thank you so much. So can you tell me a few examples of self-love in practice? Because I don't want this to turn into a narcissistic way of a connotation. Can you just tell me a few examples which shows what pure self-love is?
Yes, absolutely. And yes, we don't want to be narcissistic. Then it's more about self-aggrandizement, and that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about and what self-love looks like in practice is a lot of people think it's self-care, you know, take a bath, make a hot cup of tea. Yes, it is self-care, but it goes beyond that. It goes into really understanding yourself, really knowing what it is that you're passionate about, what is your soul calling out for, who really are you? And in order to do that, we have to go deeper than self-care. What we need to do is we need to fall in love with the self. We need to support the self. We need to be our own best friend. And this means simply learning to enjoy your own company, learning to be alone, learning to give yourself the nurturing and the love that you would give to a family member or a best friend, and really cultivating a relationship with yourself. And in order to do that, you have to know who you are. And most of us don't. And we're not taught how to do that.
Wow. Thank you so much, Marilyn. You know, I really like the way you said how to be your own best friend. It hits back home so much, and which leads me to my next question. What stands between us and self-love? Where can I improve so that I be my own best friend?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things that stand between us and self-love. For example, social conditioning and judgment. So when we're young, a lot of times people might say to us, well, stop doing that, or stop crying, or don't look that way, change your hair, you don't look right, you're not saying the right thing. So there's some negative judgments that come to us when we're children or when we're teenagers. So that's one thing, the social conditioning. The second thing is trauma. Maybe we were abused as a child, or maybe we were emotionally abused or physically abused. And if this happens, we start to have a very low sense of self-worth, and we feel dirty or we feel less than, which means we feel that our self-worth is very low. And so when we start off in life, sometimes we completely lose our way. And then as we become teenagers and adults, all of these messages that we got as children get in the way of our self-love. And actually, we don't love ourselves. We loathe ourselves. We judge ourselves. We sabotage ourselves, and we doubt ourselves. And a lot of us, if you look around at the epidemics of depression and anxiety and alcohol addiction or drug addiction, a lot of times those things are coping mechanisms for this feeling of lack of self-love, because we don't like who we are and we don't love who we are, and we were never taught. But instead, we took in other people's judgments and harsh words. Even parents will say things to us, or maybe people at school, our schoolmates will say things to us. And in my book, I write about this, and I write about how I believed everything that they said to me. And most of us as children, we don't know any better. So whatever people say to us, we believe them. And so actually, there's a lot of trauma that stands in the way of us and our true selves, or our ability to love ourselves.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. Thank you so much for that beautiful answer. And what you said about trauma really is something which is opening up a lot of, lot of doors to research, to scientific discovery. So, what do you think lies underneath this trauma that self-love helps uncover?
So it's actually the most important thing about us human beings that lies underneath the trauma. So when we are born, when we're children, when we're babies, if you remember, if you're a parent, if you're watching and you're a parent, and I know that you are, Purnima, think about your child or children when they're really young. They're full of wonder and curiosity. They don't have fear. They're full of joy. They like to experiment and explore, and they haven't really learned how to judge, but they're just exploring life and they're happy. And so that is our true self, the essence of who we are at the soul level. That is what lies underneath the trauma. So the trauma can be thought of as a burden that comes in between us and our true selves. And so we need to remove that in order to access the true self, the self that we were before the trauma, before the conditioning sets in.
See, what you said made a lot of sense, Madeline. But again, how do we discover that true self, which is beyond, which has been there before the trauma has set in? How do we discover that? How do we nurture that true self, and how do we bring that up into the foremost layer of our consciousness and let it run through, let it unleash?
Yes, that's a really important question. And it could be the most difficult work that we ever do, but it's also the most rewarding work that we ever do, because we're accessing our true selves, who we were really born to be and what we were born for. So what we need to do then is to face the trauma, face the conditioning. And in order to do that, it takes a lot of courage, and to face the fear of failure and the fear of judgment, because people around us have become used to who we are. And so we need to change. We need to face and go inside. And a lot of tools are available. The most important ones are meditation. And as you mentioned, heartfulness is one technique that's really, really important, because it cleans the heart with the pranahuti, or yogic transmission. The other tool is affirmations, to reprogram the mind, because in the mind we have the subconscious, which is a huge part of the mind, and it starts to control our habits and our thinking. So in order to change and reprogram the subconscious, we need to use affirmations. So meditation, affirmation, and really going inside, taking courage and facing yourself, including your fear and your history of trauma, is what it takes.
Thank you, Madeline. That was really, really an eye-opener. In this topic today, we mentioned how self-love is a foundation for our career, relationship, and also for serving humanity. So I'm going to slightly change gears now and ask you this question about career, because you said self-love is also a foundation for career. So we know what a career is, and we also know what a calling is, I suppose. But what is the subtle difference that exists between a career and a calling, and how can self-love help us to find this difference and pursue our calling?
That's a great question. Thank you, Purnima. So a career, as we all probably have a feeling about what that is, it's an intentional pathway that we choose for ourselves professionally. I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to take the classes, get the degrees, find a job with a nice architectural firm, and that's going to be my professional life. I'll go to the office. I'll make these plans. I'll advise construction workers to build whatever that is. I'll join the professional communities. A calling is different. It's something that comes from your soul, the thing that you are most passionate about, the thing that you were born to do. So if you are born to be an architect, then that is also your calling. But I know a lot of people who are in careers that they're miserable in. So for example, if a person is an accountant or they are a doctor, but their real passion is to be a fashion designer or to be an artist or to be in an engineer or a chemist, and maybe they took a path because their parents told them to, or because it was the mentally stable path or financially stable path, then the true self that is inside you is always going to yearn and crave for that passionate path, the true calling, the reason you were born on this planet at this time. That is your calling. And so self-love enables you to feel worthy, to feel confident, to chase your dream, to chase your passion. Whereas if you don't have the self-love, perhaps you will stay in the job that you don't like and stay in a job where the boss might be abusive, or you don't like your colleagues, where you're making enough money to get by and you're paying your bills, but you don't feel that sense of being alive, that you cannot wait in the morning to wake up and go and do your work. That is your calling. So I think the difference could be subtle, but it could be also dramatic. And I have clients who are now shifting from the career into the calling, and they have a certain glow about them, which is so beautiful to see, because they have understood that they are worthy of attaining that dream, of actually living that calling. And so they have spread their wings and they're ready to fly.
Wow. Thank you so much, Marilyn. That was a real inspiration. That response was a complete inspiration. It lifted me up totally, and I'm sure the participants are going to enjoy that too. And as I say this, I'm receiving a lot of wonderful comments. Thank you so much, Marilyn, for this beautiful, beautiful response. So my next question is this. You mentioned the difference between a career and a calling, and you explained how self-love changes our way of looking at our career and how it can help us bring out our most passionate self. Can you also tell us a little bit about how self-love is going to change our lives in terms of our relationships, in terms of how we serve humanity? Because, if there is no element of service in what we do today, it just has no meaning to life. So how can self-love help us here?
Absolutely. And I'm very passionate about this because I've seen it in action with myself and with others. So let's talk about relationships first. When we are in a strong self-loving relationship with ourselves, then we are able to have a baseline for how we should be loved because we've taken the time to know ourselves. Again, this is not narcissistic, but it's more about being your best friend. So for example, I know what I like, I know what kind of person I am, I know my values, I know my principles. So this is the type of person that I am, and I love myself. I have high confidence, I have a strong sense of self-worth, and I'm confident in my true self, not in an arrogant sense, not in an arrogant way, but in a humble way, knowing that I know what I know what I don't know. If I don't know something, I can ask. So when we are at that level of knowing ourselves through self-love, when we have a potential partner that comes into our life, we already know what the baseline is for how we should be loved. So we can tell if that person has true love for us because we know what true love is. If we never take the time to love ourselves, when we have a potential suitor that comes along, we might foolishly think that they love us when they actually don't. We are not able to see the difference. And so then we get into a pattern where we're in the same kind of relationship with different people. It could be manipulative, it could be draining, it could be exhausting, it could be frustrating. They're not the right person for us, but we always get attracted to that type of person. And we see a lot of patterns like that in the world. But when you know yourself and you love yourself, then you can tell the difference right away. And you can save yourself a lot of time and just say no to the type of person that you know doesn't love you, because you know what love is, because you've taken the time. So that's the answer for relationships. For service, it's a really actually a magical transformation. So you go inside, you face your fears, you remove your trauma, and you love yourself. You find your calling, and perhaps you find your true love relationship. But what really happens is, as you achieve the true self, you no longer need the true self. You release, you surrender the true self in service. Because the purpose of arriving at your true self is to know why you were here. Why are you here in this world at this time? You're here to serve. And that true self merges with nature and with all of life. Human life, animal life, plant life, all of life. The oceans, the forests, the deserts, all of life becomes part of who you are. And then it's no longer about you. It's all about service. So then you can serve humanity and beyond, because you know now why you took birth. And then you become one with earth. You become one organism. So any harm that you do to yourself, you do to the earth, and you stop doing harm. You become one being, and that is service.
I was sure this answer is going to be step up in the inspiration, and it truly was. Thank you so much for that wonderful response, for the wonderful answer. And in this answer, I can take back that this mergence with all of the universe is really the greatest resultant of self-love. The self-love is actually not self-love per se. Self-love is universal love per se, and you are part of the universe. Is my uh, is what I'm going to take back from your answer. And thank you so much for this beautiful answer. So when I want to love the whole universe, or when I say I want to, let me start in a very in a kindergarten way. What are the first few steps I can take to nurture self-love within me, so that I can uh, expand this into a bigger universal love?
That's a great question, Purnima. There are many steps, and in the beginning, as I mentioned, you must face your trauma. And usually when we are traumatized, the inner child is wounded. And so we must reconcile with our inner child. The adult you and the child version of you need to be integrated and healed together, so that you can be a fully integrated human being with your playful inner child and your mature adult self. That's a very important first step. And as I mentioned, a lot of meditation, a lot of affirmations are important. Also, putting yourself in the center of your life as a frame of reference. So, for example, for me, I was always a giver, always giving, always taking care of everyone else. And that is a wonderful trait in me, but also in women. We are conditioned to do that. And there are many men also who are givers. However, when we give without giving to ourselves, we become depleted and we become sick, or we become tired and drained and frustrated and resentful. So in order to really be grounded, we actually need to give to ourselves. We need to put ourselves first in our life. So those are a couple of first steps we need. Integrate with the inner child, so that the inner child knows that the trauma can be released now and it's safe to be who you fully are. And then you can be playful, and you can also be mature. And then also to move forward, putting yourself first in your life, taking care of yourself so you can take care of others in a more grounded and sustainable way. So those are two very important first steps. And when you are doing this, a lot of people who are used to the old you will start to fall away from your life, because they don't like the new you, because they're not able to use you. And now you're more aware of who's really there for you, to love and support you, versus who's really there to just make use of you. for the benefits they can get from you. So you start to become a little bit lonely in this journey. But if you stay with it, the right people who are right for you and who love you unconditionally will start to bubble up from your social circle. So it can be a difficult process, but these are some of the first steps.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marilyn. The first few steps are always, the most difficult steps. Uh, but those are wonderful markers for us to begin this. So how do I know that I've started doing this? And then how do I know I've eventually arrived at, there is no eventually arrived at the destination, because as you reach, your goal recedes. So, but how do I know I've begun this process? What are some of the signs and signals I can look for in myself, which are markers for my progress? How do I know I've begun this process?
That's a great question, Purnima. Yes, you're right that the goal recedes and it's a lifetime worth of work. And the only time we know we're done is when we're dying, then we're done. But one of the most important ways to tell is you become less reactive. If you get triggered, say if someone has called me ugly in childhood, and every time someone calls me ugly, I get triggered, I get very angry and reactive. You'll start to notice that if someone says something like that to you, it doesn't affect you anymore. You start to notice, oh, someone said that to me. Okay, that's about them. It's not really about me. I know that I'm beautiful from the inside. I know what makes me special. I know that I'm unique. I know that I'm being of service. I know that I love myself. So you'll become less reactive, and the trigger is not going to upset you as much. And eventually it won't upset you at all. Secondly, you'll start to notice the shift of people in your life. The people who are using you or not really interested in your true self start to leave your life, and new people start to come in who match your vibration, who match the loving vibration that you carry now. So your social circle may diminish quite a bit and change quite a bit. And the relationships that are really meant to be in your life, they start to show up. And you start to learn to receive that true love, that true unconditional, almost holy spiritual love. You start to receive that agape love in your life because that's what you're cultivating and giving now. So those are some of the ways you can tell that you're shifting into true self with self-love.
Thank you so much. That was really a very amazing answer. I'm going to summarize that beautiful response right now for the benefit of our participants who have a few questions. And this response particularly answers those questions, is what I feel. So, the first point, you say that we start becoming less reactive and more responsive, and eventually we totally don't react at all, which is really wonderful phenomenon to happen. And then certain people drop off from our life, and we develop this we start to notice that certain other people whose vibrational compatibility matches with us start entering our lives, and this enriches us, this nourishes us, and we start to really feel this nourishment and go forth and unleash our creativity. This is an amazing second marker. And the third sign, which you said, is we start feeling or we start realizing that we are receiving this eternal, true, holy, spiritual love, and we start synthesizing it, we start manifesting it, and eventually, perhaps, we might also become love itself. So, thank you so much for this beautiful answer. And I mean, summarizing it again, we start becoming less reactive, number one. And number two is beautiful people whose vibrational compatibility matches with us enter our lives. And number three, we start realizing that we are recipients of this true, holy, spiritual love. Thank you so much for these amazing, beautiful, spiritually poignant answers. It's really a beautiful webinar, and as we are running out of time, and it is time for an experiential session of heartfulness, relaxation, and meditation. I request the participants to send all your queries through email, and Marilyn Cornelius will certainly answer all your questions. Thank you so much for participating and sharing this, and I urge you all to join us in today's heartfulness, relaxation, and meditation. So as Marilyn, you mentioned, meditation is also a very important way for us to start feeling this true self-love. Let us begin today. So before we actually begin, let me tell you how this is. For those who have never practiced meditation before, please don't worry. You can start today and um, just follow the mental commands to relax yourself. And after that, you can continue meditating for a few minutes. So I'm beginning now. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. Relax your toes. Feel the energy from Mother Earth rising up through your toes to your feet, relaxing your feet. As this energy rises up, it relaxes your legs, it relaxes your knees, it rises and relaxes your thighs. Now your hips are relaxing. Bring your attention to your back and slowly, gently feel your lower back relaxing. And as this energy moves up, it relaxes your upper back also. Your upper back is fully relaxed. The whole of your back is fully relaxed now. Relax your stomach. The energy moves up, relaxing your chest. Relax your shoulders, arms, forearms, wrist, palm, fingers. This energy flows through your hands, relaxing the whole of your hands. The energy is oozing out of your fingertips, relaxing the whole of your hands. As you gently relax in this state, bring your attention to your neck and relax your neck. This energy moves to your head, relaxing the muscles in your head, your jaws, lips, cheeks, ears, nose, eyes, forehead, till the tip of your head. All the muscles in your head are completely relaxed. Feel your whole body completely relaxed. If there is any tension or any ache in any part of your body, please allow this energy to move there and relax that part of the body. As your body sinks into this complete relaxed state, slowly, gently bring your attention to your heart, the heart which is the source of light and love. Meditate on this source of light in the heart and let it attract you inwards and inwards into the light in your heart. Please allow yourself to slip into deep meditation. If you feel any thoughts coming in the middle of this meditation, gently ignore them and bring your attention back to the light in your heart. Let us meditate for a few minutes in this way. whenever you're ready, please gently open your eyes. Thank you, Marilyn, for joining the meditation. Thanks to all the participants who joined us for the meditation. And
Thank you so much, Purnima.
if you would like to continue this meditation, I urge you to find a nearest heartfulness trainer or walk into the heartfulness center, which is nearest to your location. You can do this by logging in to Heartspots, HEARTSPOTS, heartspots.heartfulness.org. If you find that process cumbersome or difficult, please write to us and we'll put you in touch with the nearest heartfulness trainer. You're also welcome to share your feedback about this webinar session, and if you have any suggestions for future webinar sessions, please write to us at glow@heartfulness.org. If you have questions for Marilyn, which is about this webinar, please write to us and we'll forward all your questions to Marilyn. Again, you can write to us at glow@heartfulness.org. Marilyn has also been very generous to offer a part of her book on self-love, which is the path to romantic success, what you weren't learned in school or home about finding true love. All the participants of this webinar will be receiving this chapter. And once again, thank you so much for joining us today. And stay tuned for the next webinar, which is in August. Claudette from USA is going to share how as a family we can maintain boundaries and find love and success in a relationship in families, within family members, by maintaining boundaries. So that's also a very interesting webinar, and it has been a request from many users and participants for this, and so we bring to you Claudette from USA in the next webinar. And once again, thank you so much, Marilyn, for sharing your wisdom and for sharing some of your love today with all of us. We are really indebted. So if there is anything you would like to say as a conclusion, please.
Thank you so much, Purnima. It's an honor for me to share some of my humble thoughts here. My concluding message for anyone who's been watching is take the time and do the work and be your true self, because you know that is who you really are. And if you cannot be who you really are, what can you be?